If you think we have the ability to do a 7th podcast on Gabriel Jesus, you've got another thing coming. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. It is worth mentioning this isn't really the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. This is just the Arsenal Vision podcast. And I think going forward, that will be how we refer to ourselves. I mean, there's no match. We do like 17 podcasts a week. How can it possibly be the post-match podcast? So just something to think about, I guess, as I feel, I don't know, a little philosophical today as Arsenal have brought Jesus to the club. There are a lot of jokes that can be made. Arsenal went with the Cristo Redento reference with the image of him looking over the Emirates with his arms outstretched, much like the famed statue in Brazil. And I understand there's one in Lisbon as well, for the record. But look, if the last podcast we did about Gabriel Jesus didn't satiate you, maybe the one we did about Gabriel Jesus before that satiated you. Maybe the 2 scouting videos satiated you. Maybe the podcast before those satiated you. But whichever podcast it was that you need about Gabriel Jesus, we've done it, and we've done it from every angle imaginable. And so we're not doing it now. That's it. I even did one with Daniel Friba to get the cycling journalist view on Gabriel Jesus. We covered it all, my friends. We covered it all. So here's what we are going to do. Coming up at the tail end of this brilliant episode that you're going to enjoy, and I know that because I haven't recorded it yet, but I just have a really good feeling. I spoke with Phil Costa, who has not been on in way too long. We did cover some rumory stuff, but we focused in on the left 8 position, and we got into what I thought was an interesting debate about Emile Smith-Rowe and why we don't talk about him more in that position, whether we should. And Phil, you're going to have to stay for that section because Phil was really down on Smith-Rowe, said some disparaging things, not just about him as a footballer, but as a person that you're not going to want to miss. So stay tuned for that. I kid. Okay, here with me now is Paul. You can find him on Twitter at @PositivelyMyPants. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo!
And Clive, you can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter at Superdo. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Gang's all here except for Scott, who, of course, went to work for Arseblog today, putting out the By the Numbers column, which, of course, you should read because it's brilliant. Now, we're just going to do a rumor roundup. That's right. We're going to do all the rumors. No rumors too stupid for a podcast like ours. We can get into the muck. Why not? Let's have a little fun. I think we've earned it. We waited around for Gabriel Jesus to sign. He finally signed. So let's get into the rumors. Let's start with one that I don't think has a lot of legs, but that I think has an interesting debate attached to it. Clive, people want to bring Serge Gnabry back to the Emirates. Now,
Okay.
I don't know that I think he would regard Arsenal as his home particularly. I don't know that that attachment exists for him in the way that is being portrayed. But Serge Gnabry, a good player, and I think people have felt we need another attacker. People are worried the Rafinha deal is not going to come off. We have added Jesus, but we could use more up front, and Gnabry's a hell of a player. My issue here is how much tax is the Bundesliga tax, right? How much tax is it on these attacking players? Because we've seen players come over from the Bundesliga and be quite good. That Kevin De Bruyne guy, I think he's going to make it. But we've seen a lot of these players not be able to reproduce their best. In fact, I was just having a debate about Jadon Sancho with some friends offline, and this is a guy who had a 17-goal, 16-assist season who produced 3 and 3 in the league last season. So maybe setting aside whether you think the Gnabry thing can happen, how do you feel about it conceptually as being the solution to our problem?
Yeah, let's just touch on Jadon Sancho. If you look at Jadon Sancho closely, last year, I didn't rate him physically. I think he had a way to go. He's young, and he can get there. But I felt it's a bit easy for him. You watch those German videos when he was playing at Dortmund, receiving the ball, standing still, doing what he liked. Harlem Globetrotter step over stuff, right? No one in the picture of the screen. Not going to work. So but he's got talent. It'll work. If he wants to develop, I'm sure he can. On Gnabry, now I'm not. This is not my words, but I read this somewhere, so I feel like I overdreamt it. That ages of wingers seem to be coming down. Do you know what I mean? And what part of the reason why he's thinking about moving is he wants to play more centrally. If you look at his body shape and body type, he's a guy that he's heavily muscled, right? That's what I'm going to say for now. And he's super powerful, super quick, banging shots off both feet. There's a trend of talk about ball striking at the moment. Well, ball striking, where's it come from? It comes from your power. Where's your power come from? It comes from where you land your standing foot and how you keep your core together. He's got that banging shots, mate.
Mine comes from an orb that I found in the desert that I keep in my basement. But go on.
banging shots. And I hear what you're saying about Bundesliga. I just ignore that. I hear you saying about Bundesliga players, and yeah, I hear that, and I want to agree with you. But then what flashes in my mind is him going to be playing against Spurs and absolutely running through them. It was 2-3 years ago. I think he did it against Chelsea as well. I'm not sure. But he's played against some of our the British teams in the Champions League, and he's ripped them, mate. Absolutely ripped them. And so I think he would transfer. I just feel...
Do you want to name the team? Because it's Tottenham Hotspur, and it was hilarious, and I loved it. Okay.
Yeah, I did say it was Spurs, but I think he did it twice. It's to somebody else. Yeah. And look at that. I think it was a 7-2 game or something silly like that, and he really got rid of Pochettino. But he did it again. I can't remember the team. I think it was Chelsea, but I'm not sure. But anyway, talent, power. I just feel he's something we don't quite need at the moment. Not from a playing perspective, but from a wages perspective, where he is, what he's going to demand. He's already turned down over north of 200 at Bayern Munich. What's he coming here for? 3? I thought he just got rid of those. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to do that again? From a football, slot him in. Football manager, slot him in. Thank you very much. From Arsenal, what we're trying to build, I'm not so sure. But that's not dismissing his talent. And I do think we need a wide forward, Elliot. I'm not messing about. We need one. And I'm still hurt by Rafinha potentially going somewhere else. And I always say don't get attached to players, but I got a little bit attached to that one. I quite like the idea of it. So I hold my hands up, and I'm still damaged from that one, I'm afraid.
The people who say don't get attached to players are the people who get attached to players.
Yeah.
I'm basically coaching myself, Paul. You know, when I say that, I'm really counselling myself. And,
it's called copium.
I struggle with it. I'm not the one that's up in the night watching YouTube. Nah, it's not me. It's not me at all.
I know that's a lie because your Twitter timeline at around 3 a.m. your England time is all of that Brazil Scout YouTube channel. It's like his whole catalog unloads on your timeline. It's
and you know the mistake you're making there, Clive, is like it's because of the way you're constructing the sentence. Don't get attached to players. That's actually a big no-no because what your brain hears is get attached to players. You need to think of a way to rephrase it. You know, like obviously with a child, I'm like reading a lot of child psychology, and it's like don't tell your child don't run. Because they hear run, they don't hear don't.
Tell them
so
walk.
Exactly. So that's what you've got to. That's what you've got to. I think there are always other players. That's the phrase you want to go.
Yes,
with.
I like that one too. I like preaching. You know me. I like a preach. Don't get attached to players, apart from the odd ones you want to get too attached to. Do you know what I mean? You hold on to those. You know what I mean?
Well, let's stay on Gnabry just for a second. Firstly, I think we can agree, whatever he has in talent and stats, he's not got the name Gabriel, and so I think that is a problem, and that's one that I find it hard to look past. I don't know if you guys know what DALL-E is. DALL-E, I don't know how you say it. It's a photo generator on the internet. You can type in any plain text, and it will generate a word. And so I generated Gabriel Magalhaes, Gabriel Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus as Russian nesting dolls. And I'm wondering if we could deploy them that way, that like Gabriel Magalhaes brings the ball forward, splits in half. Gabriel Martinelli comes running out of his body with the ball, splits in half. Gabriel Jesus opens his right foot and scores into the top corner. That's disgusting. And I don't know why.
What's going on with you?
Look, it's just weird. Yeah. Tim is just a touch loud, but that's okay because his ideas, they demand the power to reverberate in your ear holes. Well, Tim, let's stay on the Gnabry thing for a minute. I do think that another goal scorer is certainly something we should be looking to prioritize. I've been very clear that I don't think it's our next priority, so to speak, but I certainly think we need another one. Otherwise, we really are dependent upon big breakout seasons again from young players. And Serge Gnabry, I think, talent-wise, has it all. Where do you fall on the idea that we shouldn't get back into players on big wages? Like, I'm torn on it because there's a part of me that says if you want a seat at the big table, you're inevitably going to have someone at your club on a pretty outrageous wage, right? I mean, whether it's De Bruyne at City or it's laughably Ronaldo at United, or, I mean, to be fair, Spurs hijacked Kane and Son onto like 11-year deals back before they knew what their value was. So that's smart, but a little bit of an outlier. Liverpool have them too. So where do you stand on the idea that we shouldn't get him because the wages would be big? Because I sort of think if you want to play in that pool, you're going to have a player or two on a 280, on a 320, something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess I think like Gabriel Jesus, by the sound of it, is going to be on quite good money. Probably may well be our highest paid player at this point. I kind of I'd rather get to. So I think that the problem, right, with the big wages we've given out, with the exception perhaps of like Willian, and that was largely because he came on a Bosman. The problem has always been the second contract, right? When particularly Ozil and Aubameyang in particular, it's the second contract that was the problem in both those cases. First time round, not a problem. They delivered largely what we wanted them to deliver, more or less, not flawlessly, but more or less, and that's why they got the second contract. I think the thing is with Gnabry, the reason I think I'd go more with Clive on this is because he's 27. I'd rather give the bigger salary to 25, maybe, because the thing is, what you've got to think of is like you're giving them probably a 4-year contract, maybe 5. And so that I mean, I guess you could just say, well, screw it, sign someone like Gnabry at 27, we'll keep him till he's 31, 32, and then maybe we just lose him on a Bosman. But he's done everything that we want him to do at that point, and we don't renew him. And, maybe it's more problematic buying someone at 24, then producing 3 really good seasons, and then when they're 27, renegotiating the contract and getting their crap seasons, maybe. I don't know. I think the thing is with Gnabry as well, there is an injury history there. That we're aware of because some of it happened on our clock. And so it's a weird one. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that if you sit down and tell me in 3 weeks' time that we've signed him, I'd be excited about that. I'd be excited with a concern in the back of my head. Maybe a bit like when we signed Thomas Partey, and we voiced that concern on this podcast, much to everyone's horror.
I was literally about to type that in. Remember what you lot said about Partey? I was literally going to type it to him, but you did it. Brilliant.
Yeah, and to some extent, I don't think I still don't think we were mega wrong to do that. By the way, largely just because of the players' fitness more than anything, but. Look, let's not make this the Thomas Partey podcast, but he hasn't been universally brilliant all the time. I think he was the last few months, but anyway, if you do,
here we go.
Oh Jesus! Oh no!
We've already got Jesus, Paul. You don't need to invoke him.
Exactly. Touche.
But you know what I mean. Like I agree. So for me, I do think that another goal scorer of some stripe. It is still the priority. We're miles short of where we need to be in that respect. But Gnabry is one that I just kind of think that ship sailed. And I do think as well that you shouldn't really go back to someone you've already had. And to have Gnabry at the opposite ends of his career, I don't know. Something about that wouldn't feel 100% right to me.
I think that's fair, and I do think it's worth pointing out, to your point about the injury track record, just if you're going to give someone $300,000 a week, you need to at least feel fairly confident that they can start 35, 36 Premier League games for you. I mean, they need to be on the pitch all the time. His most starts in any league campaign is 26. His most minutes is 21.93. And that means that, he's had some good seasons, and he's played well in the Champions League, certainly. But he hasn't shown that he can really run the marathon, of a grueling season in a more physical league, in a league that maybe doesn't give you the space and time that attackers enjoy. And, it's not to say he's not a brilliant player and that, could he do it on a cold, wet night in Stoke or anything? It's just, I don't know if I could be okay giving that kind of wage and making that kind of commitment to a player who has never really been the anchor of his team, at least from a playing time standpoint. 25, 26 starts, that's his best ever season. So I just think...
why aren't Bayern going to that money? The money that he reportedly wants. And they bought Mane, who's 29. So,
It's not the age
It's
thing.
not an age thing, is it?
No, it isn't.
It's a body thing, mate. It's a body thing. And they kept Kingsley Coman as well. And look at the body types. I'm telling you, look at Gnabry with your own eyes and tell me what the future looks like. So,
Yeah. Well, okay, so, Paul, I mean, just from a pure player quality excitement standpoint, if we could get both Rafinha and Gnabry, and you were the guy who got to choose who it was, and the money was the same, all things being equal, you could just pick between those two players and land them in Arsenal's team this season. Do you have one you like better?
All things being equal, footballistically, I'd take Gnabry because he's got the same name as the other guys.
Yeah, Gnabry.
Yeah, so there's a sign there. Look, he can play.
Except that has to be his first name, so he'll have to do that thing where his first name becomes his last. So it'd have to be Gnabry Serge.
Sure, a surge of Gnabry. So,
I would too, by the way.
He could clearly play in three positions. He'd be great. I do share the concerns about. I don't know what his future looks like. I think the Bayern thing in terms of the 300k per week, I think that's just because Bayern don't need to do that in the Bundesliga for the kinds of level of player they get. I think there's a kind of a weird kind of market they're in that they're not in our market. So it might not be that they don't think he's worth 300k per week. He's just not worth 300k to them in the Bundesliga. If they had to schlep it with the rest of us in the Premier League, they might well think, that's what you got to pay for that guy in this league, but they don't got to pay that. They have a talent machine that comes through. They had the reasons for Mane. He brings something very specific to them, and they're willing to pay, but they don't got to do that for Gnabry, especially because he feels like one of their own. So I think there's a lot of, you said don't consider those things, but I don't know how I can look at those two players without considering those things, because all things being equal and Gnabry stays fit into the future, he gets you so much across your front line.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But Rafinha, taking into account his age, his fitness, he'd be on a much lower wage and therefore nicely fit into our pay scale. I mean, you can't bring in Gnabry as maybe 100k more than everybody else and it not be a factor beyond the football. He's got to start basically all the time. He's got to be kind of a top dog, and you just brought in there's a lot going on there. And from his side, there's his whole story, and he's left this club and he's taken this step up to Bayern. It just doesn't fit. Rafinha would have fitted, apart from the whole world wants him. What I think is really interesting with Rafinha is I think he's the prototypical positional play, deadly dueling winger that somebody like an Arteta will want, that Pep absolutely wants, so that he's terrifying, say, the right wing, while you're doing your ticky-tack on the left wing and you switch over to that side. And now he's got the 1v1 on that wing. And that's classic positional play, that quality overload of a 1v1. I think he's a very, very specific type, and that's why we went for him. And not easily replicated, duplicated. We should buy that fella Leeds are looking at to replace him. But outside of that, I mean, it seems to be all kinds of logic. And they're looking at Cody Gakpo, are they?
I thought they were looking at Tyler Adams too, right? Is that?
Yeah,
Leeds?
but same position though.
I'm not across the Leeds rumors particularly, so the only one I knew was Tyler Adams.
Yeah, they're looking at Gakpo, looking at Adams as well. But different positions, Paul.
I don't
leave
know.
Leave it to you, Clive. He's got us here.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Gakpo, but from what I've seen, he also has that will duel anybody and just have them on a string for the first 20 minutes to crush their spirit. And I think Rafinha gives you that. And I think he's a very, very specific type for a positional play team. I can see why we wanted him and why we go for him. I just don't think Gnabry is a fit from his side or ours. But footballistically, if he could keep that up for 5, 6, 7 years, I'd love him.
Look, Eddie Nketiah is averaging a hat trick this preseason. Do we really need to go for goal scorers? Maybe we should give Jesus back. We probably have too many goals. if he continues to score, I'll say this, if Nketiah scores 3 goals every single game this season, we're going to be very hard to beat, and we may be in the title race. So, it may be a moot point. We may not need any attackers at all. Clive, I'll let you handle one that I haven't seen on the radar, but you have, and I think you'd enjoy talking about it. So that's all I need from a podcast credibility standpoint to let you go wild. Sergey Milinković-Savić. Have at it, Clive. Are we getting this guy? Is he exactly what we need? Is he going to change Arsenal forever? Is he going to have a statue outside the Emirates?
Well, you know me. I don't really enjoy looking at these sort of rumours, but I think...
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
This is somebody that has been on my radar. My mate Tom has been talking about it for about a year. I've been thinking, what's he on about? But I had a little look at him about a couple of months ago because Chelsea were looking at him. And when you see him, he's a midfielder, all-round midfielder, very graceful, 2-footed, can play either side 8, and shots, assists, goals. But, mate, honestly, don't look at the YouTubes. I've already got messages in our timeline, Elliot, saying don't scout him because he's that good. That's what people are saying. Don't scout him, you idiot. Just don't scout him, basically, because I don't want anyone to jinx it. He is beautiful to watch. Beautiful in the eye. I've never seen a full game of him, but don't look at the YouTube. You won't sleep. I mean, seriously, he's so graceful. He's perfection. Watch him on the ball. He's two-way. He's got a good size. Dominates. Can carry it. Can shoot both feet. Mate, don't look. Don't look. He's really, really interesting. He's 26, 27. They want 50 mil approx. Lazio. There is an interest in Lazio having Lucas Torreira, so could there be a little bit of shake and bake there, potentially? Take this bit off the top. But I'm trying not to believe it because people that do this much more than even I do tell me, don't listen to Italian rumours, Clive. They're always wrong, right? So similar, Aaron Hickey, for example, lots of Italian rumours came out. They got the price up a little bit, and he's now going to Brentford, right? And Arsenal were used as part of that. Chelsea have been linked to Milinković-Savić for longer than we have, potentially. They're trying to up the price, using us as a little bit of a stalking horse. So, nice player, and I compare him to Tielemans just briefly. Tielemans is very silky, but not as silky as this guy. If you look at a lot of Tielemans stuff, he falls over. This guy doesn't fall over. He's just neat. And, for the older listener, the way he sort of plays, he almost reminds me of Trevor Brooking, but almost a bit more punchy. Very stand-up, very smooth. So, yeah, one to get excited about, but don't get excited because I'm not sure I believe the rumour, but very nice football player. Very nice.
I like that you said for the older listener, as if there is a younger listener here, as if there's some 17-year-old listening to us right now. My dear, sweet teenage listeners, if you were here, thank you. We love you for keeping us young. How do you do, fellow kids, as they say? Tim, rumors. Lisandra Martinez.
It's a good album.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Lisandra Martinez is a good album, but I don't think it's an album that's going to be in our stock. Here's the issue I have with the Lisandra Martinez rumor. I just can't get away from the idea that Ten Hag is going to have the edge here. Now, whatever we think of Manchester United, and we think a lot of fun things about Manchester United, all of which are warranted, they are still Manchester United. They pay a ton. They have talent. It's a club kids will definitely grow up thinking about wanting to join. And I mean, he played for Ten Hag. So I don't know. I mean, I get 2 + 2 + 2 = 222 and he's off to United. But all the rumors say we're still really after him. The interesting thing about being after him, Clive and I did a scouting video. And look, I am not a scout. I'm just a person who watched some footage. I don't see a Premier League center back. I don't see a need at center back. Assuming we believe Saliba's coming back and is going to be able to fight for a place. We've got 4 of them, 3 of whom I think we really highly rate. Not to mention that Tomiyasu is a hell of a center back also. So this to me is backup left back or replacement left back, which I agree is a priority, but I'm not sure it's the kind of priority that I'm going to get bent out of shape if Manchester United take a guy that to me doesn't look like he's going to be a center back in the league. So I struggle with this because I think he might be off to United. I think he's a player who's got every single pass you could possibly ask for, but I don't see how he neatly fits into anything we're trying to do at this moment. That may be short-sighted. I'm curious how you feel about him, his destination, and why we are so hell-bent on getting him, apparently.
Yeah, I think So I already said this on the Arscast earlier, so I'll try and do like...
Nice. No, just repeat it, and then we hope we get ours out first. That's how this works.
It's already out, I'm afraid.
Damn it. Okay. Well, we always copy his ideas anyway. Go for it.
But Argentina produce a lot of players like this, a lot of defenders like this, and like they don't play a position, they play an area.
Mascherano,
and like there's loads of Gabriel Aints, Juan Pablo Sorin, these guys who can play any one of left centre back, left back, and left central midfield, because they just operate in that area of the pitch. And I think my best read with Martinez would be that he'd back up all of those. He'd be back up left centre back, back up left back, and potentially back up one of the backup left eights as well, and that he probably wouldn't get into a starting 11, but if any one of those is injured, he comes in. I mean, the other thing we talked about this morning as well, I mean, I think if we get Martinez, I think Rob Holding would go. I think we'd sell him, and that would be one of those rare kind of, one of those like Iwobi. I mean, I don't think we'd get that kind of money because it's centre half, but one of those like Iwobi, Willock, Martinez, like the few good sales we've done over the last few years, where it's like, okay, we're actually selling you at a reasonably high clip. We don't think you're quite Arsenal quality, but you're not a bust. We're not hawking you around trying to get rid of you. There'll be interest there if we put you on the market, and we might even get a bidding war going or something. So, potentially room could be made, I think. I do think it's a pretty fascinating one, though. And, a lot of people have speculated on, with all this kind of activity, is there going to be a sale somewhere? And I think I'd pitch it more at Holding, but, there's been some whisper, and this is complete speculation and therefore very much in the spirit of this podcast, but
yes,
there's been whispers about Gabriel, right, with Juventus and things like that. We signed him 2 years ago. I'm not hearing anything about offering him a new deal, which, maybe I can't remember if he signed for 4 years or 5 years. Maybe he signed for 5 years and therefore it's not necessary. But you know what I mean? Like that could be. Potentially in the offing.
It would drive me nuts if it happened, by the way. I think it would be a huge mistake.
It's just one of those things, like there have been some whispers of interest around that player, and if you're grasping around for we might sell someone quite big, it might be Xhaka, might be him, maybe it's none of them, maybe that's not true, but it does kind of make me wonder in that respect. But I think what we've seen from Arteta as well is in terms of centre-back, rightly or wrongly, however you think of it, like distribution is a massive thing. Like I think Ben White's a good defender, but I think we brought him in because of what he does with the ball.
Can I give you an irony, just a quick irony to cut across you for a second? The irony, and I'm not saying that the eye test validates this or doesn't, the defender in our lineup that has the best passing stats, if you care about this, is Gabriel, ironically.
Yeah. And that's possibly because he plays where Xhaka plays, and therefore the passes give it to Xhaka.
I don't know. Just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's not bad on the ball at all by any means, and he can bring the ball out and things like that. But yeah, the Martinez one does fascinate me. My best read on it is that, predominantly back up left back, and that's probably where he'd get a lot of his games. But he actually hasn't played a lot of his career at left back. It has largely been left centre back. But I see it as just one of those. I think one of the things that Arteta will really look for is that kind of high-level rotation player. I think that's what Fabio Vieira is going to be. I think Fabio Vieira potentially could back up Saka, Ødegaard, or the left eight. And it's like, by doing those three positions, you will always be in touch with the team. You will not be like wearing a jacket for 4 months, not kicking a ball until we need you because we're in the shit. So I do think that there's potentially something to that. But I also think if Martinez comes in, Tavares definitely gone. I think Holding would probably go as well. So there would be some money raised potentially as well if he came in and a couple of squad places cleared.
Yeah. I think, like, it just feels weird to me because when you land on a guy like Gabriel, who's learned your system, who's played, has not been universally perfect, but is still young and growing into the position, who's got physically all the traits. I mean, he is our paciest center back right now. The data says he can pass. So, that's good enough for me, at least at this moment. I don't know why you want to sort of throw that away. I know throw that away is a loaded way of saying it, but like throw that away and start over when you've got something that is pretty hard to find. I mean, the defender market is not easy. Paul, I want to continue on this topic with you because I'm going to throw another rumor into the mix with this, but do you want to add on to that before I give it to you?
I do. Look, I don't see how we'd be bidding 50 million or whatever we're going to get to, 40, 45, 50 million for a guy that we might see him as a backup to fullback in the first half of this year, but I don't think that's where this is going.
I agree, by the way.
Yeah.
I think Arteta wants his Cancelo.
Yeah.
I think that's what he wants.
Yeah. And it might be a little bit of a different Cancelo. He might see this guy as a guy who can play centre-back, and he'll use him as centre-back from time to time. I think Gabriel Magalhaes has overperformed in a way. I don't mean it's not sustainable, but I liked him. I thought he was going to be really good. I think his passing has been really good this year. And there's no reason it won't continue to be. I just don't think that's quite as natural a game for him as even if him and Ben White are performing around the same level passing wise next year. It's just a little more natural with Ben White and with
but then you know who's a great passer, it turns out? William Saliba is a really, really good passer.
Well,
you can't fashion a center back group out of Gabriel, Ben White, and William Saliba. You got to go buy an undersized pass master at 60 million.
Yes, you do.
It seems crazy to me.
I know, but we haven't got to it yet. So, he can play 3 different positions. He can play, but they're all in that one zone, that one area, and that's positional play. Like, one by one, I love Kieran Tierney, but he's not a positional play guy. He can do a couple of things for you.
No, I agree with that. He's an overlapping fullback.
Yeah, he doesn't have that Cancelo thing. And Gabriel Jesus, this is not the Gabriel Jesus podcast. Like, we're going to put a guy.
To be fair.
Yeah, we don't really play positional play. We play the first stage, the most basic. Like, we don't do anything that clever. It's a clever 4-2-3-1 with a bit of 4-3. Like, we haven't even begun yet. You have Jesus up there weaving his patterns, making those runs. Us arguing whether he's playing 9 or false 9 and in game these rotations. Like, we haven't begun yet. We don't really rotate on the right side of the pitch, let alone the left side of the pitch in attack. We're just stage 1. Like, our ideas, what we need in the back line are very, very basic at the moment from a positional play standpoint. And part of that is personnel. And you need a player who's like, whoa, what is he? He's really good at a few things. We've got good people in each position, but Gabriel Magalhaes is not a positional play. Is he a fullback? Is he a midfielder? He's a really, really good centre back, and you absolutely want him part of your team, and you want him as one of your selections of centre backs. But this is a whole other thing, and we're not spending maybe 50 million. According to Ornstein, we're off to meet him in Europe to try and make our case, even though, as you say, United, Ten Hag should be better positioned. We really want this guy. Why do we really want a 5'9" centre back who'll probably play a bit of centre back for us? Because positional play. But we haven't really begun, I don't think.
It's so weird because I feel like I'm the last person to go your dad on my football analysis. Like, I love to talk about XG and I talk about how age curves and culture doesn't matter. I mean, I really try to steer away from your dad. And maybe it's because I'm so nervous about being perceived as an old man that I'm trying to have young man's views. But I can't see a Ben White, Lisandra Martinez center back pairing in the Premier League work. I can't. I love the way it would pass and carry the ball. I do not love the way it would
Could you see
defend.
Lisandro and Saliba, though, on another day?
I could, but yes, I could. Look, could I see Lisandro as a left center back in a 5 or a 3 or whatever you want to call it? Yeah. Yes, but again, I don't think we want to go there. Maybe Tierney is the sale is what pops into my head. And Tim, I'm surprised you didn't bring that up or type it into the chat, perhaps. But, well, Clive, let's stay on this then because there seems like there's meat on this bone, and maybe I can introduce a wrinkle with a rumor. early in the window, Zinchenko rumors were flying around. That's gone very quiet. I think I'd rather have Zinchenko, honestly, because I think the money would be more palatable. He's played in the league for the manager, for the system, and looks pretty good. And Lisandra Martinez looks amazing, but he's going to be more money, and I don't know how he's going to adapt if there is a move. Look, everybody on this podcast likes Kieran Tierney, but whether Kieran Tierney is A, a fit for our system, and B, just fit, right? You can't have a key player in a key position who only plays 66% of the games. He may need to be replaced. How do you feel about Martinez? Because for me, the Zinchenko rumors were really, really interesting, and I think I'd still go back to him first.
Yeah, remember we were looking at Pepe and we had the Pepe Zaha discussion. I think there was a 2-3 years age difference, and the lesson I learned from that discussion, although I was for Zaha because I felt we needed a right footer rather than a left footer, but hey, it's gone now, is I know what he is. I know what he is. With Jesus, the reason why everyone's so happy is we know what he is. We don't want to even do a podcast on him anymore because we know what he is, right? So, and I quite like the Tielemans rumour because we know what he is. We know what potentially he could be. I think sometimes, why are we overpaying for the exotic with the ideal that he can play 3 positions? I can remember being on this podcast. I can remember on this podcast, but none of us have seen a full game of him playing 1, right? I can remember being on this podcast trying to justify us buying Cedric, saying, oh, he can play right back and left back. Well, when we saw him kick the ball in the car park playing left back, we didn't want him left back anymore. Do you know what I mean?
I can't remember how I felt about Cedric, but I think I had strong feelings at the time.
But having strong feelings is one thing. We paid money up front early, all the rest of it. We all know it was a crap deal, right? So, but you try to justify it. Why are we doing this? Okay, you can play right back, left back. Oh, I see the sense in that. Okay, as soon as you see him playing the other position and he can't keep it on the pitch, then you say, well, actually, this ain't working. So we have this. I was having a chat with Andrew offline the other day about this utopia of these players that play multiple positions when we're profiling them before we actually get here. That utopia, how often does it work? How often does it really work? And I think, it sounds good. But I tell you what I do know. Zinchenko's got, I hope I say that name right because people take a mickey out of me. Zinchenko's got has done the business for a team over 4 years and has got some medals in his back pocket. And we've seen him play internationally in midfield. We've seen him play left back for City team that plays a Cancelo type role in that midfield zone, clipping the ball left, right and centre and getting out of the press. If I had 25, 30 mil on one, 45, 50 mil on another, I go with one I know. Now, Martinez, you can't help but look at it and look at all the videos, look at all the data viz and all the rest of it and say, oh, he is very interesting. Mate, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think he played 10% of his games as a left back per se. I absolutely don't think he's a centre back in England. I think he's that Cancelo player that Paul mentioned. But let's see what happens. But I'll sleep easy. If we get him, fine, because that means the manager's got a plan. If we don't get him, I'm fine with that too. That would mean he wasn't meant to be, right? So if he goes to Manchester United, they can stick him next to Harry Maguire. Well, that's going to be fun. Right, so let's just sit back there. Let's sit and watch that. Right, so
we can't lose.
Maybe their whole transfer policy is, what's the opposite of Maguire? Find me the smallest, most technical footballer you can, and make him a center back.
I do think, and I will say this, and I enjoy it too. I enjoy the fact the base of our team, the technical level, the base of our team has gone up a lot. It's a big part of the improvement by which we saw last season. The speed and running ability of our backline has improved. So we know the drill, right? We can play in better areas, etc., etc. But let's not get it twisted, right? I want my defenders to be able to defend properly, particularly in wide spaces. And the moment we saw some instability defensively and some instability from a press resistance perspective, and our ability, we couldn't play. Right? We couldn't play, And so let's just make sure we keep our priorities correct so we don't get too fanciful about this stuff. Because we soon forget when we don't see him on the grass, right? We forget what pressure looks like and how we feel when we're under pressure. So that's just my little thoughts there.
I think all of that makes sense. I think we're all of a similar mind on this. It's an interesting link because it leads us to wonder, are we getting rid of one of our more established center backs, or is our beloved but oft injured fullback going to go, or how do we see these positions playing out? The interesting
We've seen
thing,
the
Tim, is the one
Newcastle
position.
rumour for Tierney at 50 mil, wasn't it? Maybe even Man City had a look at him. And so when Tim typed that in, I went, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about. Tierney's got the contract. You send Nuno out and get him cooked somewhere else for a year, and then you bring someone in now. So if you try, again, justifying what it looks like, that's the pathway I could see. But lots of if, buts, and maybes in there.
Newcastle linked to Moussa Diaby as well, by the way. An interesting one there from, is that Leverkusen, I want to say?
Sharp winger. Very sharp.
Yeah. Tim, the interesting thing is we're talking about Lisandra Martinez, a player who plays positions that we have covered to some extent. And we're fighting for Rafinha, a player who, again, probably an area of need, but position we have filled at present. And the one that's been sort of quiet of late is the one position that I think everyone would agree we probably need to add in, and that's left 8. Central midfield stroke left 8, however you want to think about it. Now, you could say we did that a little bit with Fabio Vieira, but I don't think that the timing of that is yet. The Yuri Tielemans stuff just feels like it's still going to happen to me. And a lot of it is like Tielemans wants Arsenal. Arsenal have spoken to him. They have him sitting by waiting. The fee is doable with Leicester. Now there's this thing you always see when a rumor ages, which is United now on the case, raising alarms at Arsenal. And it all feels very reportage, you know what I mean? Just sort of in the vein of how to make this aging rumor interesting again and get some new clicks and get Arsenal fans agitated about why are we waiting? Why didn't we just go for him now? United are in for, it has that feel. This one just feels like one that's been done to me for a while, in the sense that player and club are close. We had some other things we had to get done. I mean, maybe, just maybe, we're trying to see what else is out there at that position. But I don't know, Tim. It all just feels too hand in glove. Position we need, player we can get, age and experience matches. So I'm going Occam's razor here and saying it's going to get done, but maybe that's naive. What are your thoughts on that particular one?
I completely agree. It has to feel to me a little bit of maybe Ødegaard last summer.
Interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that's slightly different in that clearly he went back to Real Madrid to see the lie of the land, and they had Ancelotti in, and he was probably understandably like, okay, I'll see where I am with Real Madrid before committing. So that's probably why that happened a little bit later in the summer. But this does feel very back burner to me. The way I read it is basically, look, we've got Gabriel Jesus, that money's down, paid. I know that's not how transfers are done, that there's installments and stuff, but
yes, right.
Budgetary, that's off the books.
Point made. Mm-hmm.
I think probably with Tielemans, they're like, okay, there's probably no more haggling to be done at this stage, and now they're in a position where they've got a couple of other targets and they've got a budget, and it's a case of, okay, all right, but if we do the extra 5 million on Martinez, then maybe that has a knock-on effect to Rafinha or whoever our second target is after that. That there's an element of, okay, we've put that down on Jesus. We know we're going to have to put this down on Tielemans, and we've got a couple of balls up in the air at the moment, and maybe our first bid isn't going to be accepted, and we need to see where everything lands before we kind of hit the button on something like Tielemans. So I agree with you that to me that has the feel of pretty much done. And if another club comes in, and by the way, that's been happening a lot this summer, there's been a lot, not just with us, there's been a lot of, because there's distinct markets now, and the Premier League is a very distinct market.
Yeah.
And what a lot of these clubs are trying to do, like Ajax have done with Martinez, they make things very, very public. Leeds, Rafinha, that's become very, very public. They're trying to spark bidding wars, and they know that the Premier League is its own economy at the moment. And so there is a fair bit of maybe. I mean, Chelsea just seem to be fucking thrashing about wildly, going for anyone.
I wanted to get to them before we say goodbye today.
Yeah, I think we should leak that lots and lots of clubs are interested in Cedric, and Todd Bowley will probably turn up with about 50 million for him.
Nah, he's got to play. He's got only wingers. It's the all winger club that no player unless he plays on the wing.
If he's in for Ronaldo, just be like, look, we've got another Portuguese guy who has a 7 on his back and has a very nice haircut. Yeah, and quite a good physique, looks very nice on Instagram in swimming shorts, but that will probably be enough for him. I feel like we've gone into bad territory here, but But
possibly.
you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of kind of and I think we might have done that with a couple of players. So like Leno, Fulham, is that us making that public? And just it might. I'm sure Leno's thinking I can probably get a better offer than that. But is it Arsenal going, look, Fulham are there? Someone else make a bid. Maitland-Niles and Forest. Look, someone's making a bid for Maitland-Niles. I really hope someone else doesn't come in with a competing bid. I think there's a lot of that going on at the moment. And obviously, we got the big target in Gabriel Jesus. I think we've probably got Tielemans or close to it, and we'll be ready to like pull the cord on that. And we're just seeing how the other bits and pieces land. So I do think that will be done. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it may be done already, and we just wanted to announce Jesus first. Who the heck knows? Like, there's really two classes of transfer, it feels like. The ones you've been linked to for a long time that just felt like they were going to get done, like Gabriel Jesus. And then there's the Fabio Vieira signings, where you're like, who did what now? And I feel like there's more of that to come. There's so many big dominoes still to fall this window. Barcelona are going to be responsible for, I think, a bundle of that. PSG maybe as well. Neymar, is he going to move? I mean, I could see him coming to Arsenal on deadline day. So, we'll hold out for that. Make Arsenal Brazilian again, obviously. That is the move. I mean, he's going to want to join his Brazilian brethren. Cristiano Ronaldo may move, and that's where I want to go over to you, Paul, for a minute. One of the things about a transfer window is it's a time to strengthen your team, but it's time for other teams to strengthen too. I'm curious, as you look at the landscape of the league shifting and changing, how you think about what we've done and what we still need to do in the context of what others have done. Liverpool have been fairly decisive. Manchester City, extremely decisive. I mean, they've gotten a lot better, let's be honest. Manchester United, I just don't know what to make of them at any given point. Chelsea, it looks like Todd Boehly just has come in like a bull in a china shop and wants to make himself known. We talked about this a bit. And then there's Tottenham. And they're getting a fair bit of credit for the work they've done. And I have to admit, like, if it wasn't Tottenham and we weren't permitted, we were permitted to say complimentary stuff about them, I might be inclined to say they've gone about their business fairly well. I don't think Basuma is a player that would have suited us particularly. And I don't know that Richarlison fits a need for us particularly. But I think for what Conte wants to do, those are pretty good, pretty clever signings. So let's start with them. I mean, as you look at what they've been linked to and what they've done so far, do you think they've, raised the level we need to reach to make sure that we get back to our rightful place beyond them?
Sadly, I think Spurs are doing what they need to do. Like, Conte is just a really good judge of horse flesh. And if they gave him the money to buy players, I guess I was never in doubt that he'd strengthen in areas that he wants. We mightn't love their squad. We mightn't love all their purchases. But he knows what he wants. I think Richarlison is adds something to that front line in terms of options that they'll absolutely use and makes them stronger. He's powerful, he's hard running, his level of commitment, he's a bully from a football standpoint in a good way. I mean, not my favorite person on the planet, but that's not really what we're measuring here. And maybe not the most elegant of finishers, but brings a level of pressurizing pace and power that they're going to want to use and makes them definitely more intimidating. Harry Kane had more minutes for Spurs last year than any other player, including their goalkeeper, which is gobsmacking.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And Conte's got him really fit, and it seems like he can play all the minutes. But in a World Cup year, it gives them options. They now have 4 front players. They're not all about the Harry Kane show now, or he can play a little deeper and start popping balls to other players. Basuma in midfield, I mean, they just have a lockdown. They're going to be incredibly difficult to beat and really dangerous playing a Conte-type game. And then Manchester United have massively strengthened if they move out Cristiano Ronaldo. If they buy any players,
yeah,
that's terrifying that they would move on Cristiano, like like huge.
Both them and Chelsea, though, just seem to have forgotten that midfield is a thing. Like, it's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And Chelsea, their defense, too, I don't know. I don't understand the what you got to admit, like, it
might be the fact that the window that opens for us in the top 4 is Chelsea, not Spurs. I hate saying anything good about them, but like, we know Conte is fucking good, and we know he loves these players he's getting. Like, you don't even have to know football; you just have to know horseflesh and Conte's horseflesh to know they're getting really strong.
You know what he is? He's a guy who's a clear identity of how he wants to play. He's got a squad that fits that identity to a T, and some elite attackers who can just be a difference maker. And like, unfortunately, it feels like the kind of thing where we're just going to have to wait for this cycle, the Kane and Son cycle, to end. Now, maybe we get lucky and it ends now with, Kane turning his ankle and, your Son missing some time. Maybe it ends in a season or two. It's going to end soon, and I don't think they'll ever be able to replace what Kane has been to them, Clive. Like, the funny thing is, if you said to me that we get back into the top 4 next season and Spurs get back into the top 4 next season and Chelsea and United drop out, at least on the early returns of what's going on, I could see a world where that happens. I'm not saying that's what I think will happen, but I could see a world where that happens. How do you look at the way the other teams are going about their business and Chelsea's seemingly maniacal obsession with having all the wide players, regardless of whatever else they need in their team?
Yeah, Chelsea are really in the market by overbidding for every player, and so it's causing problems for everybody else, and they're being used, and they don't really care, right? Free money, new money, got to make an impression, ripping the staff apart. The club is to be defined, and it's going to be defined. I think the Ronaldo interest is very interesting, and I think that could happen. I really do. And that maybe tells you where Todd Bowley's going, right? So for Spurs, I hear what Paul's saying. I tend to agree, and there are many channels out there on YouTube that are predicting Spurs to get closer to City. I mean, crikey! I didn't know Fraser Forster was that good, right? So, I think
they're not getting up to that level.
That's not my feeling either, Clive. I just think they're going to make themselves really tough to beat.
No.
I don't think they're going to chase. I
totally get it, and I think the moody players that he's bought really suit that club. Moody players that want to get into you. So obviously they're going to bring in Pasuma and probably lose Harry Winks, and Everton are the charitable fund that they are, and they're going to overpay for him. Thank you, Everton. And so they're going to be fine. They're going to be solid. But one thing I will say is, as all of us are sitting here, the 4 of us, we know exactly how they're going to play. 3 at the back, 2 in, sit in, wing backs push in, spaces outside centre backs. They'll probably add a left-footed centre back to their pool, just to support Davis on that side. They're going to have 3 strikers tucked in a cradle. We know exactly what they're going to do. And that means they can be analysed. They can be analysed. They can be stopped. If you drop deep against them, they're going to have to create. Eriksen's gone to Manchester United. They should have got him. They need that creative player to unlock doors. They have players that play in a way that suits their A game, which is a semi-counter-attack game with a space to run into, and they finish above their XG. So I think it's a worry from a professionalism point of view that they start the game. Their points per game was really good when Conte came in, but I'm not worried because I think people will take them seriously. Now, the 4 of us, we know our football club, and we are still debating how we're going to play. We are not complete. There is a level of variety. There is a level of change. There's a level of creativity, which is very hard to read. Very hard to read. And there's a level of patterns, which is going to be so interesting to see develop. So all these teams looking at us right now, because we're upgrading in forward areas, they're going to have a new problem, a really new problem to face. And I think that's going to be our trick. And people are going to have to adjust to our way of playing. And I think with Spurs right now, we know exactly what they're going to do. So though, on paper, I really feel the same sort of semi-worry that we all feel. But when the ball moves, trust me, I think teams will take them seriously. I think they'll find it tough to break teams down.
Yeah. I mean, they're just going to be what they were last season, but more. And I think there's a ceiling on what that can get you.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that ceiling is in the top 4, as we saw last season. I mean, I think 72, 73, 74 points is about the best that way of going can get you. But if they just essentially strengthen their chokehold on 73, 74 points, I think it's a top 4 position. United and City, it's going to be really interesting because both of those, I mean, I don't trust United to ever get it together. And pardon me. And I mean, Chelsea are the other one that I don't know, like based on what they're trying to do right now, it's really questionable. I think we should leave it there because there's a really interesting conversation coming up with Phil Costa where we're going to talk how we fill that left 8 position and what Emile Smith-Rowe's future is. I think he wears the 10 on his back. The club gave him the number 10. We think of him as a winger now because he played that way last season, but is that his future? Is he an interior? Is he a playmaker? Where's his future lie? We're going to get into that and more. So I will firstly say goodbye to Clive, who's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
And Paul is on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thanks, Paul.
Woohoo!
And Tim is on Twitter at Stabilito. Thank you, Tim.
May Jesus be with you all.
He will be. He will be. And soon, my friends, and may some other signings be with us all pretty soon as well, so people don't lose their rag. We've got a lot more coming up this week. Some fun Patreon stuff, and then another main pod, and then more pods and more pods and more pods. But there's more of this pod as Phil Costa is coming up next. Stay with us.